Happy spooky season. Our next story is based on a story that Charles Dickens remembered from his childhood, and I couldn't resist it, and I'm sure you'll understand why. There once was a shipwright. His name was Chips. His father before him was Chips. His father before him was Chips. And his father before him. And his father before him. He came from a long line of Chipses. Now, Chips, the father, had sold his soul to the devil for an iron pot, a bushel of tenpenny nails, a half-ton of copper, and a rat that can talk. Chips, the grandfather, had sold himself to the devil for the same, and Chips, the great-grandfather, had done the same. All of them came to a terrible end, but the bargain had run in the family. In fact, it had run in the family for a long, long time. One day, Chips the younger was working on a ship at the docks. He was all alone, down in the dark hold of a ship that had been hauled up for repairs. All of a sudden, he heard a voice. A lemon has pips, a yard has ships, and I shall have chips. Chips looked up, and there, lurking in the shadows, he saw the devil. He had eyes as big as saucers, and they burned with a red glow, spitting out sparks of fire whenever he blinked. Hanging over one of his arms by the handle was an iron pot, and under that arm a bushel of tenpenny nails, and under his other arm was a half a ton of copper. Sitting on his shoulder was a rat that could talk. So the devil said again, a lemon has pips, a yard has ships, and I shall have chips. Chips was so frightened he didn't say a word. He just resumed his work and tried to pretend he was only imagining it. Chips ahoy, said the rat that could speak. Chips, old boy, what are you doing? I'm putting in new planks because you and your kind have eaten the old ones away, said Chips. But we'll eat these timbers too, said the rat. We'll let in the water and drown the crew, and then we'll eat them too. I'd like to see you try, replied Chips as he carried on with his work. He did his best to ignore the devil, but he couldn't keep his eyes off of that half-ton of copper, or the bushel of tenpenny nails, because to a shipwright, nails and copper are like gold, and a steady supply of those would keep any shipwright happy. I see what you're looking at, Chips, said the devil. You'd better strike the bargain with me. You know the terms. Your father before you was well acquainted with them, and so were your granddad and your great-granddad before him. I like the copper, said Chips, and I like the nails. I don't mind the pot, but I don't like the rat. You can't have the rest without him, said the devil fiercely. He's part of the deal. Chips was afraid of losing that half-ton of copper and that bushel of nails. So he said, hold on a minute. And he took out a pencil and a piece of paper, and he wrote out a deal with the devil to sell his soul. He handed over the signed contract, and in return he got that half-ton of copper, that bushel of tenpenny nails, that pot, and that rat that could talk. With a cunning smile, the devil vanished. Chips used the copper and the nails to finish the repairs on the ship, and the deal made him quite prosperous. He tried to sell the pot, but nobody wanted it. But he was now a wealthy man. Chips wanted to find himself a wife. but no girl would come near him. That rat perched on his shoulder day and night, and as soon as any girl saw it, she would run away a mile. So Chips decided to kill the rat. One day when he was at work in the shipyard, he put the rat inside the iron pot. Then he heated up a big kettle of scalding hot pitch and poured it into that pot, filling it to the brim. He kept his eye on it until it cooled and hardened. Then he let it stand for 20 days. And then he sank the pot in the water for 20 days more. And then he got the smelters to put it in the furnace for another 20 days. When they took it out, the pot was glowing red hot. But the rat was sitting, looking just the same as ever, laughed and jeered. A lemon has pips, a yard has ships, and I shall have chips. With that, it jumped out of the pot and scampered away. Chips hoped he had gotten rid of the rat for good. After that, he met a lot of women, and every night he went out on a date. When he found one who was more to his taste than all the others, he asked for her hand in marriage, and she accepted. But the very next day, a terrible thing happened. When he put his hand into his pocket, he found a rat. In his hat, he found another rat. And in his other pocket, there was another. And in the sleeves of his coat, when he pulled it on to go meet his fiancée for dinner, he found two more. From that time on, his tools, when he tried to use them, they'd get into his house, and into his bed, and into his teapot, and into his beer, and into his boots. When he bought a box of chocolates for his lady, a great fat rat jumped out of it and scratched her face. When he put his arms around her and tried to comfort her, he found a bunch of rats clinging to her back. Needless to say, the marriage was called off. Everything canceled. The rats even ate the wedding invitations. You can imagine what a terrible effect all of this had on poor Chips. His life was in ruins, and he fell into a dark depression. He kept yelling and screaming at the rats to leave him alone. His boss at the shipyard thought he was mad and fired him. He couldn't find another job. Soon, Chips was penniless. And still, the rats crawled all over him, day and night. Eventually, Chips couldn't take it any more. He was driven to the depths of despair by the rats, and was desperate to escape from them. One night he went down to the shipyard on the docks where he had made his deal with the devil. He stood at the edge of the docks and stared down at the water. He intended to put an end to it all, there in the water. But when he jumped, he landed with a splash in the water below. Chips looked back and saw that the rats didn't follow him. They gathered at the edge of the docks, staring at him intently, but they did not swim for him. Rejoicing at his good luck, Chips swam as fast as he could, and managed to grab onto a rope that was trailing behind a ship that had set sail. When the sailors pulled him aboard, dripping wet, he realized it was the very same ship he had repaired that fateful day. He signed on to become a member of the crew. When the admiral learned that Chips was a shipwright, he set him to work immediately, doing any repairs necessary. The ship was bound for the West Indies. They sailed and sailed across oceans green and blue. And Chips fell in love with the freedom of the sea. With a cool breeze in his hair, surrounded by the salty smell of seaweed and fish, he finally felt at peace. The ship was called the Argonaut, and on the bow of the ship was a large carved wooden figurehead. One day the sailors noticed a small hole in its forehead, and so Chips was lowered down on a rope to repair it. Dangling on the end of the rope, he found the hole, but he couldn't figure out what had caused it. Peering into the hole, he was shocked to see countless red eyes and sharp white teeth, and he could hear the sound of them nibbling and gnawing. Suddenly, a large rat poked its head out of that hole and said, "Chips ahoy! Chips, old boy!" Chips recoiled in horror. It was that very rat that could talk. "We are eating these timbers through," said the rat. "We'll let in the water and drown the crew, and then we'll eat them too." Chips was filled with terror and dread. He climbed back up the rope and tried to tell the other sailors what he had seen. Nobody believed him. They all thought he'd gone mad. Chips demanded to speak to the admiral. When he entered the admiral's quarters, Chips gave a salute and said, "Sir, I must speak to you about a matter of utmost urgency." "What is that?" asked the admiral. "We're sailing on a doomed ship, sir. If we don't put to shore immediately, we are all going to die." The admiral looked him up and down. "Young man, your words are a madman's words," he said. "Sir, the ship is infested with rats. They're nibbling us away. There's dust and hollowness where solid oak ought to be. Those dreadful rats are turning us into a floating coffin. The life of every man aboard is at stake." "My poor fellow, you are clearly insane," said the admiral. He shook his head. Then he turned to the guards and said, "Take him below and lock him in irons." So Chips was dragged down to the hold. The guards shackled him and left him there. He lay in the cell for 6 days and nights. By day he'd scream over and over, "We're all going to die," but no one paid any attention to his ravings. By night he laid awake and listened to the sound of the rats nibbling and gnawing in the walls. Around midnight on that seventh night, the hull of the ship developed a small hole, and water came in. Within minutes, there were holes all over the ship, and they kept getting bigger and bigger, and a torrent of water rushed in. Nothing could stop it. The ship went down with every soul on board. A few days later, Chips floated to the shore. His corpse had been partially devoured. Sitting on his chest was an enormous, overgrown rat that just kept laughing and laughing. "A lemon has pips, a yard has ships, and I've got chips." With the trouble that old Chips had, it makes you wonder how he managed to be born in the first place. Or his father before him. Or his father before him. I mean, with all these rats talking away and getting up to mischief, how could any woman bear to marry such men? Oh, well, I guess it's one of those mysteries for the ages, eh? Sweet dreams.